My name's Kevin James Goforth. I was born in Lillooet on May 29th, 1957. My great-grandmother was born in Lytton in 1858. My great-grandfather, who came from Ireland, his name was Harry Keary. He ended up, him and a buddy of his ended up in San Francisco. And they heard that there was things going on up in the British Columbia way, so he headed up, and he came here in about, I'd say it was I believe it was 1882, 1883, he came here. There's a place out at Seton Lake called the Munks cabin. Well, that Munks cabin was my great-grandfather's. My great-grandfather built that, and there was actually a very large piece of property. That property actually goes further up along Cayuse Creek, up above Walden North. He is a fair section of property, and he met a woman. Well, he met my great grandmother. Well, this is a real cool story. When my great grandfather and his buddy came up, his buddy met this woman. They fell in love and they got married. They got married here in Lillooet. I believe that was 1885, 1886, they got married. This gentleman's name was Thomas Spellman. Now, Thomas Spellman and my great-grandmother, whose maiden name was Susan Dozier, her father was French and her mother is First Nations. They ended up buying a hotel called the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Kamloops, and they owned that. My great-grandfather's friend, Thomas Spellman, ended up getting sick and passing away. And my great-grandfather took his wife and married her, and then they had a life together. They had my grandmother. They lived out at Seton Lake, out at the Munks cabin at the time. When my father was born, my father was born in 1918. They ended up taking my dad. My grandmother ended up putting my dad into they call in the States they call them Catholic schools. Up here we call them residential schools. With what went on in that residential school, my father became an atheist. He said if there was a God, there's no way God would allow happen to what happened to him and these other children in this school. Luckily for my father, my great-grandfather went down and took him out of this school, brought him up to Seton Lake, and that's where my dad grew up. My dad grew up there from the age of 8 years old until he left and went overseas to the war. I've got some really cool photos. That my dad was into photography at the age of 8, and he took a picture of a steam train going along the lake there, and it's black and white, of course, but it's just one of the most beautiful things. And then he went out on the lake shore and he took a picture looking towards Shalath, and the lake was so calm. It doesn't matter which way you can't tell unless you know which way the tracks, the side the tracks are on. You'd never know which way it was up or down. But so that's where my father grew up. My great grandmother, when my grandmother was born, she wasn't born in Lillooet. She ended up being born down in California, because my great grandfather took my grandmother down to California to see some family that was down there when she was pregnant with my grandmother. And I guess the trip was too much. By the time we got down there, she had my grandmother, and they waited about 4 or 5 days, and then they headed back home. Yeah, so Lillooet means a lot to me and people like me who have so much history here. I think I've said to you before, people come into this town and say, "Oh, we love it, we love it." Yes, I understand you, but that's a different type of love or the love that I have for it, because I have so much past here, so much history. Some people don't understand that, but until you've had history and a lot of history in a place, you just don't understand that. But yeah, you got any other questions you want to ask, or do you just want me to continue?